All right, welcome to the Coach's Buff this week. We have CAD with us. He's going to be covering some of his lore and diving into some of his background, how he got into Apex. We're also going to be covering some questions from our community and some questions that were sent in from individual players and such. But before we dive into CAD and talk about him, I've got a intro spot for Soaps that we are late on. We're actually 2 episodes late on it. So Soaps, I've got a 2 minute timer for you. Go off, big dog.
So I started in season 0, played a bunch, switched over to coach, got multiple finals, got a bunch of people that I've helped get into Pro League. I've got ex-Pro League players underneath me. I'm signed under M80 for esports director at the YMCA and Boys and Girls Club. That's pretty much it.
I'm back.
All right,
Welcome.
welcome back, Cloudy. So tonight, just to introduce everybody and get everybody involved, we have Soapy with us tonight. Ruli is celebrating his, I believe it's 2 banners. I think he got a banner in both Fortnite and in Apex last night. Or turn his camera back on. Um, he is going to be busy. He got a 14-hour day today, so he won't be with us until possibly later. But we will be doubling back on some topics such as BLGS reaction for you guys. Possibly doubling back with even another interview, maybe Sunday, maybe Monday, possibly. We'll see how it goes. Before we dive into that, I want to give, or before we dive into CAD and his interview, we're just going to cover real quick. Um, Everybody who I am currently coaching right now, we're all in off season. We're not doing much. The EMEA guys are LF1ing for an IGL right now, so it's kind of downtime for us, and we're a little bored. I think Ruli's kind of in the same boat. I'll have to let him speak for himself. Soaps, update on your teams.
Um, we are currently LF1, looking for a potential co-IGL and that. We've got a couple of trials lined up that I think could work out. We'll see how that goes.
All right, fuck yeah. We also have Cloudy Boy with us today. He's filling in for the great Soaps. Cloudy is a tier 2 IGL. He has been multi semis. He made all those semis on fucking a microwave for a console, or for at least for a platform. Excuse me. So this dude is an absolute fucking genius. Can't vouch for him enough as far as an IGL and how great he is. Um, Cloud, do you want to give a quick update on your team and what you're doing this offseason?
I mean, literally, now that BLGS is pretty much over, we just want to start, we're gonna start the grind. We're just gonna, scrim nonstop. We're gonna play ranked as much as we can with each other. Um, I'm not gonna lie, this split has been, very demotivating, so I've already told them that I don't know exactly how much ranked I'll be playing, but if I am playing, it's strictly just gonna be, with them to, improve and grind, um, with them specifically.
All right.
And that's pretty much it, just to work on our chemistry, because I think that's the most important thing we need to work on.
Hell yeah, man. Well, with that being said, we're gonna dive into the interview. CAD, I think this is a great topic to start off with. Update on your team, man. What are you doing right now in the off season? How are you spending your off season, brother?
I am I'm currently working with um, 3 different teams. One of them is Womp Womp, Dom 2 Correct, Jipperino, and we're currently LF1, but we have a few names in mind right now. I'm also working with an EMEA pro team for BLGS. It's not announced yet, so I can't say anything.
Understandable, understandable. Fuck yeah,
Um,
man. Congratulations.
yeah, it's cool. And then I'm also I've got some other teams that I'm working with as well. Um, but my primary focus right now is with Womp Womp and the EMEA team, so I'm excited about that. Um, yeah, and we're just gonna be grinding this off season. I think specifically I've joined Womp Womp pretty recently, and I'm very much a believer that those guys can have an insane amount of success. I know they're all insane mechanically, so that for us isn't an issue. It's just going to be about um, really honing down a lot of the team decisions, the micro, and some of the macro. And
Yeah.
when we get to that point, I actually think that these guys have potential to get pro. So
Dude, I am like so excited for you because I have been an advocate forever that Dom is a good coach away. Like that dude has so much talent and has a lot of good ideas very often, but like you see a lot of misplays that cost his life, or the space he crosses and the timing he crosses that causes his team or causes them to be handicapped for the end game or for late game rotations, and it's just rough, man. So seeing him get a coach and like start developing that craft around him and like getting him strategically set up, love that for him, dude. I'm so excited for you guys as far as Womp Womp.
Yeah, no, I think Dom has potential, and I want to highlight Jip, and then, I mean, Clayton subbed with us for BLGS4, so appreciate him. But whoever our new third's going to be too, like I'm looking forward to working with them as well.
Hell yeah, brother. I've heard nothing but great things about Jip, dude. Nothing but great things. Um,
Jip's insane, yeah.
well, with that being said, I want to dive in and talk about you, brother. I think it's time to talk about really how you got into Apex. What got you not necessarily started with Womp Womp, but what got you started with even being involved in the game to begin with? Give us a little bit of the CAD lore around you.
A good question. I I am a proud uh, peak Masters player. So in terms of
Same.
actually playing the game, I'm in no way and will never be a pro level player. Um, However, I don't think that you need to be in order to be a good coach. I started playing the game about 3 years ago. I came from COD before that, um, and I only started getting involved with comp about a year and a half ago. And then about 7 months ago, I was playing with uh, two players who I love to death, Benjamin and Skater. They're not super well known, but we ended up doing decently well. And then for work related reasons, I had to take a step back, but I stuck around as a coach and I
Hmm.
just decided to move into the coach role for them. And they ended up making semis. And but prior to me coaching them, they had peaked at like round three. So it was a super big success. We stuck together, then we ended up splitting up because of real life reasons. Um, and then ever since then, I've kind of grown as a coach and I've started working with other teams as well, and so on and so forth. IREX, specifically right before Womp Womp, and yeah.
What do you think your most difficult thing is as being a coach?
Um, it's a good question. Wanting to play.
I feel that, man. I feel that.
Crazy.
um, yeah, I think honestly the hardest part is uh, like like putting your head down and doing the behind the scenes work when you want to actually play the game.
Yep.
Like when I am in a private or a custom lobby and I'm doing shit that, is important, but it's not really fun to do. I think that's the hardest part. It's not actually like the coaching or anything like that.
Yeah, I'd actually kind of agree with that because you see me a lot of the time you'll just get unfocused so easily just sitting in the VCs just watching other people play.
Yep.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, it's all the grind stuff on the back end that's hard for sure.
Yeah.
Well,
Eva,
man.
what do you think?
Well, I just kind of want to follow up on that. I think that one thing that really separates yourself, more specifically within the tier two scene, as far as coaching is involved, and the higher you get up here, and into the tier one name as well, man. I haven't seen a lot of coaches develop software around their teams and players and like develop actual like tools for these guys to be using, and then them be actually super accurate and super useful. Um, would just love to hear how that has really the lore around that and how that has excuse me, can't speak, holy shit, how that is implemented into your coaching style. Holy fuck.
No, you're good. I uh I kind of like, I don't know, like I learned some of these skills in college, and I never really even like prior to about 2.5 months ago, I had never really even considered trying to use them. But when I was working with one of my previous teams, I was watching a privacy podcast, and I started messaging in his chat, basically trying to understand like what he does, because I didn't really know. Um, and since then, it's kind of just inspired basically me trying to guess what he does, because I know he uses code,
Mm-hmm.
um, and it kind of was a result of me guessing what he does and then trying to do it myself. Um, and it started very simple. I would do very simple things, and then as it's gone on, it's more complex. Right now, I'm trying to work on a bot that like I can watch a Twitch VOD, for example, or have multiple Twitch VODs up at the same time, and then it will automatically map the rotations and where they get kills and things like that.
Fucking
So it
badass.
makes scouting like super easy.
Yeah, absolutely right. I mean,
Uh,
that's absolutely crazy, man. So you're telling me that imitation led to innovation is pretty much how we got here.
Basically,
Yeah.
I don't know if I'd say I've innovated as much as I've imitated. I have a few things that I think I do that are unique, but I'm sure that there are plenty of other people that also do unique things that they just don't talk about as well. So,
It's totally fair,
I
brother.
think you're giving yourself a lot less credit than you deserve because a lot of these coaches don't do what you're doing.
I
You're
do
on a
appreciate
different
it. Yeah,
you're on a different level.
Sorry.
I appreciate it. I do think I do some unique things, and I know that I have value, but I also know that I'm somewhat new. Like I've only been coaching, the tier 2 scene for 3 4 months, and then the I mean I've started coaching the tier 1 scene this week, so I'm still new, I'm inexperienced, I'm learning. There's a lot to learn, so that's exciting as well.
Hell yeah, brother. Well, fuck yeah, man. I mean, that's like one thing that just to kind of like probably shouldn't talk about this long, but that's one thing that I can really recommend and like commend you for is anytime I've ever seen any of your analytics, I've went and compared it to leaks I've got and data miner stuff that I've gotten from my friends and people who are involved in that kind of stuff. Who that's just what they do. They just genuinely, if they're a comp data analyst, that's that's what they're doing full time is just watching VODs, putting stuff on paper or on notes and replicating that within images and stuff like that for us. You getting a software to do that and like developing all that stuff yourself. I mean, I think that just like shows what a great mind we have within the tier 2 scene going up into the tier 1 scene. And I don't think it could have happened to a better person, man. Like, put on, you know. Um,
I appreciate it. That's nice.
Absolutely, brother. So moving forward though, uh, want to cover what playstyle you kind of got into, and has that playstyle changed as you've developed as a coach? And if you want to talk about what you're running now, I'm not trying to give away any of the sauce or anything like that. If you have anything special, but if you don't mind diving into the mind of CAD, that way we can hear at least what great coaches think on their way up as far as rotations, strategies, and how they approach the game in general.
Copy. What play style do I like to play? It's a good question. I think play style is very POI dependent, first of all. So I think the way that you play is oftentimes dictated by the POI that you land at. Um, and How do I explain this? When I'm creating the POI and I'm trying to determine how we should play out of the POI, like aggressive, edge, zone,
Mm-hmm.
um, hard zone. I with the teams that I play, I have 5 different classifications. It's hard zone, then it's zone, then it's prio no beacon, then it's no prio beacon, and then edge, and then hard edge. Sorry, 6, not 5.
Okay.
Um, and the way that we talk about it, if you're a hard zone, it's basically you're playing into a specific zone. You have extremely set rotations. Your goal is to get into zone. We have preset spots that we try to play for different zones. And these spots are all based off of analytics, like how like typically the two most important things are like how much KP certain spots average, and then second of all like the percentage of all the rings that spot will typically be in. So for example, like Central Skyhook is like insane because
Yeah.
it's in a lot of end game rings and it has insane height and terrain advantage. So you typically get a lot of KP, and if you get that spot, it's super great, right? Um, then you have like prio, but you're not like one of the top 3 spots. You're not going to be guaranteed one of the top 3 spots. That's typically when you're trying to book it to zone because you know you're going to get mirrored. And you might grab, some Evo caches along the way, but your goal is to get in zone primarily because you don't want to get mirrored. It's actually oftentimes really hard to play this kind of spot because you have to be really opportunistic. Then when you don't have beacon, typically the rule is you're pinwheeling short side of zone. So what I mean by that is whatever ring 1 shows, you want to pinwheel. And by pinwheel, I mean kind of like rotate along the edge of the zone towards where you, towards a ring. I don't know if that makes sense. It's hard for me to do it
No,
without
dude.
drawing it out.
I mean, if you'd like to, you can totally share your screen. But I mean, it makes sense in my head at least.
Yeah, I can.
I'm
I
following
can
along
it.
pretty well.
We're all
Yeah.
coaches.
Yeah, I
We're
was
all
about to
coaches.
we have a tier 2 IGL and 2 coaches with us. So I mean, I don't think you're having any like struggle
Yeah,
with that tonight.
I figure you guys would understand.
Yeah, yeah. You're all good, brother.
So
I-
pinwheel short side of zone, and then typically after that, it's like you're playing for purple armor before you get to zone, but you still want to go because you're not like clementized or in a thermal zone, for example.
Right, right.
And then as you progress more towards edge, you have so much more flexibility when it comes to your rotation, and you typically are trying to maximize your Evo.
So for the people that don't understand, would you consider yourself a hybrid playstyle?
Yeah, I mean it's very I the way that I describe it to my teams is like we're zone dependent. So
Exactly,
we're
yep.
gonna play hard edge when we should be playing hard edge, and we will play hard zone when we should be playing hard zone. And we have to be able to adapt based on, what the game gives us.
I'm
Just
sure you
keeping it
got different
simple.
game plans for
Yeah,
different
that's what I was saying.
scenarios.
I think the only thing we differ in our philosophy within that is that I prioritize my round 4 edge for my IGLs, getting them into like really advantageous spots to score on that round 4 wash, or I don't know if you have a different terminology for it, but just creation of chaos on the edge from edge teams rotating in, hearing fights, third parties, fourth parties, getting them into a position to be able to apply pressure, if not KP, from an advantageous position. It kind of scuffs our rotation getting in from our late game to end game at times, but typically we're able to score 3 to 6 points, 9 points off those washes, and if we're in the most ideal spot, we have our back to the wall. Nobody can wrap behind us. The space we're coming out of has no prio threat to like be absorbed by anybody. So we can also like kind of rotate back to that space, get back to our space, and play our space that has an easy rotation to begin with. But like I think in general, I think me and you definitely are 2 peas in a pod when it comes to what your prio is the way you play the game. If you're playing out of a center POI and you're like we don't have a zone pull, but we do have like top 10 prio, but we're just gonna say fuck it and play edge and gatekeep. I think you're kind of fucking off and trolling a little bit. Excuse my French on that, but I mean, I think that's just one of the ways that it's 16 ways of Sunday on how you win in Apex. It's such a variable-driven game. It's great,
Yeah,
100%.
I play a more of 1 to 5 prio spot, and
Yeah.
then if I'm outside of that, I'm playing pivot spots or 5 to 8, with advantageous to 1 to 3.
Nah, bro. I land middle map and I'm like, bro, we're killing everybody in this lobby, bro. 100%.
Shut up. This is not my IGL talking. I'm dropping this guy, bro. Get out of here. All right. Glad you're here, Cloud. So moving forward onto it, what are some common factors that you faced as far as the adversity department, being a coach, climbing from the tier 2 scene to the tier 1 scene, whether it be in the scene, or whether it be in the community, or whether it be in game, team, complex, whatever it case. What is some of the factors of adversity you faced?
I think that's a good question. I don't know if I've gone through like any crazy adversity, but I'll say that I mean there's always moments as a coach where you want to like I'm fairly good at keeping my like emotionally detached. So
Mhm.
I'm not like I don't want to be emotionally invested the way that my players are, because I think that if I'm emotionally invested, then I don't think that
So how do you find a way to
I don't think
balance that
that's
of your competitiveness to be able to
I
reel
am
it in?
competitive. That is true. Um, I I don't know. I don't know how I balance it. I just I've just always been like slightly emotionally detached.
Does
I
that
try
mean that
to
you like emotionally deal with it like after the scrims and let it out that way, whether it's with a loved one or just a friend,
no no
like
no.
through
I mean
venting or?
no. I just I don't really I don't know. Maybe I'm just not maybe I'm just broken or
I
something.
mean,
Nah, brother.
your role your
Sounds
role
way
is
too
kind of
deep.
like robotic. Like you're kind of this there as to be like the mediator.
Yeah,
You can like you're dealing with three people that are gonna be like I mean
very
at the very
emotionally
least there's gonna be
charged.
like yeah very emotionally charged. They're just gonna be in a fast paced like adrenaline pumping moment. You have to be there to like level them down, settle them down, get them locked in again.
I think that's one area that I actually struggle in as a coach. That I oftentimes, I mean, I've spent the last year off and on with Cloud, and seeing his success and his rise is awesome, and being a part of that's awesome. But the moments in between where we face adversity together are incredibly frustrating, and I definitely have struggled emotionally, like just detaching from it, being not the upset uncle or you know the pissed off coach that my player got screwed in this way or you're making a mistake in this way, and like I definitely
Yeah.
struggle in that department. So like I definitely admire that about you. I think that's like honestly a very 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 character like unique trait to yourself that definitely enables you to see things a lot more clearer. So I don't think you're broken at all. I think that actually enables you a lot better than what it does most people, brother.
Yeah, one of the
I
hardest things to do is actually just, you know, knowing the timing and when to push the buttons as hard as you need to push them.
Yep.
It's very difficult inside of a scrim block, well, not a scrim block, but a tournament, to tell someone, hey, you made a mistake. We need to fix this ASAP, or, you need to lock it in, whether it's that or this. I mean, it happens more in the T2 scene than
Yep.
it does in the T1 scene because it just happens. Focus, just mistakes here and there creep into your gameplay when you're not practicing how you play. That's just my mentality throughout sports. So when you see the scrims the way they are, that's why you see CCs the way they are. Um, but I don't know how you feel about that.
No, I agree. I think definitely one of the biggest issues in the tier two scene is practicing the way that you would play game day. I don't think there's any doubt about that.
Yeah.
I also think that you see some of that in the tier one scene.
Oh yeah.
I don't think it's
Oh
unique to
yeah,
the
it's
tier two
everywhere.
scene.
I think that is a player-based issue. I've mentioned on the podcast
I
before
think
that.
it's rank
Holy fucking
based.
shit, man. But
Yeah. Um, but yeah, I mean, as a coach, I think it just helps to be like stable. That way, you rub off in your players, and and hopefully it adds stability to the team as a whole. So
That's one thing I've seen change like through like pro league teams when when like TSM like fell apart for a little bit like when Raven left. I saw like a big difference when they added on their new coach, where he was like a just straight up robot, but he was like not just like to like say like he's very smart, but like he was very 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 level headed, and he kept everything like on like a business level. Like this is not a joke. This is just like how it is,
hmm
yeah,
but not like
Talmage is a
antagonizing anyone.
great coach, 100%.
I think
He
Talmage and really are alumni in some way. So shout out Talmage, big time.
yeah, no, he's a great coach. I've watched a lot of TSM VODs to try and pick up things that he encourages TSM to do. So Talmage is the goat.
All right, brother. Well, I think this kind of segues itself into the next question of how do you approach Apex strategically? Whether your software or that be you looking at other coaches, other influences to the game, you crafting yourself after them. What is your approach to this, and how does it implicate in your coaching play style or your coaching style? Excuse me.
Uh, Good question. I think there's a limit to what software can do in this department.
Mhm.
As much as software is great for like preparing a team and like helping them understand the game more, helping them um, from a very broad sense. In a very broad sense, I think software does a good job.
Mhm.
But in terms of like the micro and all the decisions in the game, it's very limited.
I mean,
One
it can't do your
thing,
job for you.
Right.
no,
Right.
it definitely cannot. When it comes to playing the game, uh, the way that I see it is the game averages 50. There are 57 kill points in every lobby plus revives, so it ends up being something like 60 something. And then there's 50 some placement points available in every lobby. So when you're playing the game, you always want to be maximizing both. You want to be maximizing the amount of kill points that you get, and you want to be maximizing the amount of placement points you get. And ideally, your balance is something like 1.2 kill points to 1 placement point. If you're doing a good job, it means you're playing the game to the best that you can.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so, what that means in practice is that you want to be incredibly optimistic, but you have to be able to opportunistic. Sorry,
Mhm.
but you want to be able to uh, you also need to be careful, and it's hard to do both. You got to third party the right things. You got to play from the right spots in zone. You got to take the right fights. There's so many different factors, so it's kind of hard to say all of them here. But um, it's a game where balance is so important and decision making is so important. Um, and if you don't have the right balance and you don't have the right decision making, you tend to not do very well.
All right, brother. I think that a lot of a lot of my approach strategically, just to just kind of mirror that question with you and bounce it off of Soaps as well after this. Um, from a strategic aspect, I think that a lot of my play style and what I do as a coach has definitely been influenced from Raven. I obsess over the information that I've gotten from that guy, the play styles he's implemented within his teams, how his teams have progressed from start to finish, of his influence being with them. So I'm a huge Raven guy, huge Raven fan. That dude has definitely been a very huge influence in the way my approach to the game is strategically. Also, I mean, I kind of touched on it earlier whenever we were talking before the camera was rolling. That I got to shadow a really talented coach, Ink W, back in my early days of coaching. So that dude is definitely probably the biggest influence to my approach to the game as far as my strategy. Soapy?
Yeah, hot
Both
pick
are
was mine.
both are great. What are your thoughts on Raven as a coach? I think he was instrumental in bringing a lot more balance to the game in terms of valuing kills and placement point at the same time versus like valuing just placement points, because it used to be you would have so many teams end game and nobody would be willing to fight on edge. And I
Mm-hmm.
think Raven was one of the, like TSM, when Raven brought on, they were one of the first teams they swapped from Monument, or not Monument,
Fragment East.
Fragment
Fragment,
East. Yeah.
and they started playing these much stronger POIs. They started going to Lightning Rod, and they would play much more aggressively on edge. What are your thoughts on the way that Raven, and specifically, I think he was the guy that changed the game in terms of
Yeah, I
uh,
agree.
value?
I think he's a testament to the scene, man. I think that he is a uh
Actually, have a little bit of a
kind
hot
of
take.
kind of maybe rude to say this and maybe premature to say this because he hasn't retired yet, but I probably put him up on my Mount Rushmore for esports coaches and their influence and
Yeah, I would
impact on
too.
the scene. And like their specific esport, not just Apex, but like in the entirety esports, like what Raven has done for Apex, my Mount Rushmore, definitely one of them. With that being said, as far as the TSM things, I think that he took a great team and maximized efficiency and put them in the best spots to win. And I think that's the difference in what you see whenever you have raw teams who are just really great and talented players versus a well coached team. A well
I
coached
also think
team.
he did it
Go ahead,
with
sir.
a hand tied behind his back.
Um, before you get on that, 'cause I'm sure you got a hot take on that. Um, I think that a lot of what Raven did was just simply providing the most effective and efficient plan of action to
Mm.
hands down one of the most incredible teams that Apex has
Probably the
seen.
game's ever seen.
Yeah,
Yeah.
period.
Yeah.
And not only
Most
that,
dominant.
but we also got to see just what you guys were saying about almost. I mean, Raven was a little bit more animated than a robot, of course, but Raven wasn't scared to raise his voice and challenge Hal back and get Hal under control. You know, I'm sure there was a lot of off-camera things that we saw that took place as well that maybe were a different approach. But I mean, there was times on camera where you would see Raven, lose that composure and kind of get back on his ass and be like, "Hey, man, you're blatantly wrong. You fucked up.
Yeah.
I've got to hold you accountable, and that's my job." So I think that also that added dimension really
Yeah.
impacts that team specifically.
Yeah, I thought early on with Raven, specifically with that TSM job, he did such a tremendous job, and I think towards the end, he had to be more of a therapist to try to keep things going and keep things together. Um, I think he literally did stuff with his hands behind his back. He didn't want to play the meta that they were trying to play at that era. He was trying to put Fuse involved and stuff like that. And then Hal made a bet with him about if we win the scrim block with this thing, we're running this comp, and they ended up doing that and ran the whole thing. So I do think that Raven didn't have full control as he probably has now on Bleed. I shouldn't even mention their name, but
Yeah, fuck those guys.
I
Loan
do think
sharks.
he was a
Loan
little bit
sharks.
handcuffed. They're loan sharks now.
Loan sharks. Yeah,
That's
loan
fun.
sharks. Yeah, fuck bleed.
Yeah. So I do think he's a pioneer. I think a lot of people do forget about this guy, and we just can't. And it's hot sick.
I mean, that's another great one, man. I feel like there's. I mean, Lay has been coached by Hodge, and
Even Capreem.
there is not enough good things I can say that like everything that dude has told Lay, every time that he echoes it back to me, nothing but agreements. So like the message he sent to a guy that I work with now has been great messaging. The message delivered, so great coaching on that part. Being a big mind doesn't mean shit if you can't explain it. If you don't understand it well enough to be able to deliver the message, it doesn't matter. So
Yeah, those are the two that I would probably put. I don't feel comfortable putting 4 up there right now. I feel like the Apex still has tons of room to grow, and coaches are kind of in the new scene. I think if you're talking pillars, those are the two you start with in Apex for coaches.
I would take that. I would take that. I would take that. 2 pillars for sure. Cloud, you got any info
I
on this,
agree.
brother?
About, I mean, I think like the Raven. I loved watching his streams. I was like, he was probably after I stopped watching um pro league scrims every day. Like I just watched him like a couple times a week. I was just like waiting for Raven's stream to pop up because I just wanted to like serious feedback. Because like one thing I loved about Raven is that like he always has a reasoning for everything he says and everything he dictates. Like just hearing like the way of thinking not only explains his thought process better, um, but it just makes the idea so much more clear.
Yeah, he
Super
get,
smooth.
get to hear the why.
Yeah.
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 Not just like, oh, this is better. Okay, I'll run it. How do I use it?
Right. I think that just doubles down to the messaging part of things. Being able to explain why, how, when, where, timing behind things. Getting into the details of comps a little bit unnecessary, but being able to explain that messaging in those ways and how the variable approaches go throughout that. Don't want to spend too much on anything. I know I've got to let 2 of you guys go early tonight, so we're gonna move forward on things. We're about halfway through our scheduled program, and then we're gonna move on to I almost said communist. Holy shit! Our community
Could
questions.
I ask? Could I
Yeah.
ask a question?
Yeah, absolutely, brother.
What skills do you think Apex Legends translates into the real world, coming from a coach's perspective?
I think teamwork's definitely one. Playing as a team. I think communication too. Now, I don't want to say that every player communicates well because that definitely isn't true. But
Relationships through high stress situations.
yeah, exactly. And
Yep.
then being able to communicate quickly, efficiently. I think all of that's important in real life. And I think just like in terms of like the game itself, I mean, there's certain skills that translate as well, like awareness and things like that. But What do you guys think?
I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head with that one, man.
Yeah.
I think you pretty
I,
much
I think
got
you
the plate
gave
full.
everything.
Yeah.
The outside of that is literally just problem solving, but you probably snuck it in there somewhere.
Problem solving is a really good one. Yeah, that's true.
I actually that's kind of foreshadowing because I've got a lot of community questions that are about some of those specific topics coming up for you. So,
Awesome.
Patrick.
all right, you got anything else for him, Soapy?
I think I have one more question. Let me double check on it real quick.
Yeah, absolutely, brother.
Oh, something in esports that you could do to better the scene across all games. I'll start with mine. I
Yeah,
think
shoot yours.
you should implement a salary cap.
Okay,
It's not a
interesting.
terrible idea.
Games can't
I
be
think
created.
just mandatory hours for paid players is important.
Oh, so
Mandatory streaming.
Ooh,
hours.
that's a good one. That's a really good one.
The
On
minus-
the game that they play, right? Not some
the tempo approach.
dark and darker gameplay.
Yeah, I'm not trying to
Yeah,
watch
leading up to
people play
CCs.
Minecraft, bro.
That's hilarious.
It's a good one.
I think those would help the game a lot, both from a
Yeah, 'cause most of
content
those-
side and-
Yeah, most of those contracts are always just hours streamed, not what game you're streaming. So they can take advantage of that.
I have a hot
Yeah.
take on this one.
Say it.
I think the best thing. So hold on. This may not answer your question, and I'm sorry if it doesn't. I may have went outside the parameters of your question with this one.
It's all right. There's a box, and you're always outside it. So
Always,
let's
brother.
Talk
That's
about
what I'm known for, right? So
let's
listen.
talk about it.
Esports in general, Apex, every platform game, everything. Get backed by cities. Get backed by your
Oh, okay.
local governments.
Yeah.
regions.
By your
I've-
regions. Yes.
I've had that
Yeah.
conversation with
Get
them,
backed.
Eddie.
Yes. I've talked to you I think about this actually, Soaps, where
Yeah.
I've actually mentioned this a couple times that I think this would be a game changer. I think that if you take TSM and you go to Los
think we're-
Angeles and you say, "Hey, Los Angeles, I want to build esports centers for the youth all over here, but I also want to build one just huge, just mega esports center
This-
that we can hold state championships in, college championships in.
I
We
do
can be
think
the
that
pinnacle of esports within North America. Right here in LA, we have the biggest brand. We have the biggest West Coast presence. We have media all over the place. Let's do it here. And that's a great place to start, in my opinion. Is like get TSM and engage with the local government with LA. Get them to start backing them heavily. And
I
like,
think you're thinking too big.
I mean,
I think we're already in
maybe,
the path
maybe.
right now.
Oh, bro, Evan for president,
So-
bro.
maybe
So,
I'm thinking too big, but
What
like,
I'm saying, no. What I'm saying is, I think you're skipping the step that brings us to that.
oh yeah, I mean for sure, man. This
I
is
think it's
definitely
at
like
the
dreaming.
collegiate level. You see schools like BU, Northeastern
Mhm.
hosting big tournaments for that across like D1 and the ACC. Then you're gonna get all of that, focus in that one area for them to then open up like
We're gonna have to do an episode
a-
on the
a
collegiate
North
scene
Carolina
because
game. You know what I mean?
there's a lot going on in the collegiate scene that I'm learning about as my involvement increases. We haven't announced it yet, so I won't leak it on stream. But I mean, if you know, you know.
You know.
Yeah, right. So I'm learning a lot about that, and there's a lot that goes into what you're talking about right now that is not what you think it is at all. It's not the schools doing it whatsoever. It's the alumni. It's the students. It's all booster funded. None of it's allotted from the school whatsoever or from the school's funds. All this is non-sponsored. It's all student sponsored. So like, with
Yeah, that's the
respect
same
to you,
thing with the
like
football
it's
program.
yeah
all
it's
booster money.
it's well, yes and no. So like the football program gets a large allotment of money from the university already, and then they get booster money on top of that. And like that's been that way for years.
No,
It's
they-
just the booster
No,
money
they
came
only
in
get
McDonald's
money if
bags,
they,
you know.
they go to championship games.
Well, you get like
Outside
you get
of
like
that,
okay.
it's-
Well,
it's
we don't
booster
want to get off topic because this
yeah,
isn't
yeah,
about
sorry.
college football. But they definitely get other allotment of resources as far as like the resources that they like actively sell in the stadium, merch, food, stuff like that. So bigger programs obviously make more money. Blah blah blah. We'll talk about that stuff like that. That deserves a whole episode for sure. And like, CAD, if you want to be a part of that conversation, I know you've mentioned some about collegiate Apex, off camera, so I don't want to mention that now. But if you want to be a part of that conversation, I welcome you back too, brother. But that definitely deserves a whole fucking episode because that is a lot to dive into of what's going on within that scene. But yeah, my hot take on it is I would love to see the Dallas Optic Apex. I would love to see Los Angeles TSM. I would love to see New York Cloud9, fucking whatever the case is. North Carolina dick swingers for all I care. I generally don't give a shit. I would just love to see these cities start getting invested. Whenever you start seeing that's got the trickle down effect where you start having these local lore. You know, you start having the local high schools get more involved in it. Kids are getting involved in earlier ages. We have so many kids right now in the CC scene that are within the 18-year-old age gap of being in high school that should be playing for their schools. If they were, they could be state champions, getting money to go play scholarships for schools in the future, possibly by the time they go to graduate. So with that being said, I think that would be a huge thing to see. I think that would change esports drastically, and the Olympics involving esports potentially, and that being a thing that's on the board.
They already did.
They did. It's confirmed.
Yeah.
I heard that it was just up for like they were like talking about doing it for the next Olympics, but it wasn't confirmed yet. So if it's confirmed,
No,
fuck
it's,
yeah, dude.
I mean, I don't know if I was supposed to release this, but yeah, it's been confirmed.
Well,
for
if you
Saudi
didn't,
Arabian
I
money.
appreciate it. We're just gonna go viral, so shout out to you, dog.
Sorry.
Yeah. So Olympics
Yeah, then I'll
confirmed.
get fired on the
esports.
weekend. It's gonna be great.
It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. Hopefully this slip pays us all enough that you don't have to work, right? Fuck yeah, dude.
Oh yeah, right.
I mean, do you know what esports are gonna be in it? That's the real tea, right? Are we seeing League or are we seeing Apex? What's up?
I have heard rumors of R6 and League of Legends.
Okay, I feel
Those are the
like
two
there has
things
to
that
be a
I've heard
Rocket
so
League
far.
team too. I feel like Rocket League is too easy to follow for them to not do that too. Is that fair?
Yes, and I
Okay.
don't know if it's big enough to pull it.
Okay, that's fair.
Type of thing. I think with the volume that Jinxie's pulling, the volume that Kainu is pulling over there in Spoit, and it's a lot of viewership right now. And if you're talking League of Legends, I mean, they do better numbers in the Super Bowl.
Yeah,
You can go
yeah,
check that.
yeah.
It's absolutely true. Korea is absolutely ridiculous when it comes to that things.
Yep.
So those are the two things. It's going to be the Saudi Arabian World Cup, I believe it's going to be called.
Interesting. Okay. Go ahead.
But yeah. Just to piggyback off of centralizing gaming into one area.
Or
I think
regionalizing or
yeah, regionalizing. Once you have those big schools take over, it's going to grow a fan base in that area, and then there's going to be demand for the pro team that you're looking for. But it starts with the collegiate level, it starts with the high school level, it starts at the middle school level, and once that's all there, the farm system's there, then they start feeding into the universities. Then you have interest gain, a whole new sport.
hell yeah. All right, brother. Well, we're gonna get back on topic. Back to CAD because this is his day to shine, right?
There-
CAD. Big question for you that I personally wanted to hear. What has been your favorite legend meta? Holy shit, legend meta to play and coach. English is tough tonight.
I love this meta. I think this meta is pretty well. Technically, I guess it's the previous meta because this meta is still shaping up. But the Newcastle Gibby meta is so much fun. I think it's super. It's super
I think the late games. I think the early to mid game is really fun. I think the late games are it's just a toss up.
Yeah, it is a bit of a toss up, especially like in that final zone. But the amount of chaos and
Oh,
zone
yeah.
is crazy. It's so much
The
fun.
chaos part of it is fun.
I'm
I
just
also
glad
think
you're
it's-
able to see it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's way better than the cat Bangalore meta.
Oh, 100%.
Bro, I love just like turning off my monitor in an end game, bro. Like last 5 seconds of the ring closing, I just turn off my monitor, just start like holding down my right trigger. All good.
I think every meta though is fun in its own way. I even like, for me, like I just like it when it changes constantly. So as long as the meta is changing constantly, I don't really have too many complaints. It's when it sticks around for a really long period of time that then it starts to get kind of boring. But even like the can't see meta was kind of cool when when Catalyst first became a thing.
Fine.
And there were
We're
so
hearing
many cats in game.
yeah, we're hearing of a Loba and a Mirage buff coming. Do you
Really?
think you
Wait,
could
really?
be- Yeah,
No
that's
way.
confirmed. Wondering what you would think if they reworked any of those characters. Could you see them taking spot? And
I-
what were the changes that you would make on those characters?
I think Loba is the worst character in the game.
Mhm.
You'd have to buff her like crazy. I don't even know like what kind of buff, because her whole thing is loot, but like loot is like one tiny aspect of winning a fight, and it's not really that important. So I don't typically think that Loba, like, it would take a lot for Loba to get in the meta. I can't even think. It would have something to do with like gaining Evo. Like if Loba could.
Oh, if she could use her ult to grab Evo caches.
Yeah, I don't really know what it would be, but
You could trade guns in for Evo.
I
Yeah.
also think you have to get rid of the bracelet animation. Just nuke it.
yeah,
Just allow her to be able to have movement, come out of it, and use your gun. It is a massive problem.
yeah. I think Loba would need a major buff. I think she's cool as like a solo character.
What
or
changes
whatnot,
do you think
but
would you make to it?
I think you would have to make in-game changes, wouldn't you? Like you would have to like
Yeah.
include
Yeah.
Evo caches within the game that she could grab that would make her more valuable for her team, and like
Yeah, or
add
mythic goods.
well maybe, but like add a multiplier of like the Evo caches looted from Loba alt are 3 times more significant. So a blue Evo cache is like, what is it, like 100 and something HP or Evo?
350.
The blue ones, not the
Oh,
not the
are
gold.
you talking? Okay, I see what you're saying. Those are 100.
Yeah.
it would have to be significant.
Yeah.
And she would also probably like the problem is like what are you giving up when you play Loba? You're giving up so much.
Yeah, 10,000%. Like it has
No
to be a
defensive use
yeah.
skill, no
it,
aggressive use
it,
skill,
it
no
has to be a
ability.
huge
Yeah, you
like
have to be hard zone.
yeah.
She has
Just
no
hard zone.
no abilities that like contribute to anything in a fight. Like the only thing she'll give you is maybe like a better mag.
Or anything
It's-
conceptual to like what a
Yeah.
battle royale is as far. I mean, outside of
Uh,
looting, the only thing she really offers you is like, I mean, like you don't hold space with
Nades.
her. Like yeah, that's it. Like
Yeah,
you don't hold
it's
space with her. It's just like
just
extra.
nades.
It's just utility usage. Like you're, I don't know. I mean,
Yeah.
that's
What about
current Loba is scary to think that she would be buffed into meta. I don't love that idea.
I mean, we all know that like Mirage at the highest level is very, very easy to recognize. So Mirage is like as an aggressive character, it just doesn't really because that's the reason you would play Mirage is like for the 1v1.
I don't even know what you would do to buff them.
Put
I
AI
don't
on his
either.
decoys. Like
You-
make
you
them
wouldn't
automatic.
really-
Like they have to play the game.
Yeah, the decoys would need to like if the decoys could shoot or something.
He
and,
would
like,
need
do
a stun,
damage,
some kind of
something,
stun.
I
Like
don't know, you would
when
need-
you shoot a decoy, you get
Ooh.
stunned. That would be really decisive right there.
Oh.
That's kind of broken.
Oh,
That's-
yeah.
yeah.
That would break. Oh, don't give them
Yeah.
that idea, please,
Let's not do that.
dude.
How
I mean,
about we just
you
bring the
guys
decoys
asked me.
on top of
You
each
guys
other?
asked me.
Dude,
You guys.
dude,
this
that
was your.
would be brutal.
This was their question. Okay, this wasn't mine. This was their question. Okay, so like.
It's
But
just a bad
even like
question.
even making Mirage an aggressive character doesn't necessarily mean that Mirage will suddenly become meta because like the reality is like most of the points are in like a game are you get those points in like the last 3 minutes of the game, you know. So Mirage might be good for like an edge team, but then Mirage also has to be able to contribute when there's like 8 teams closing round 5, round 6, you know? Like what can Mirage do in those scenarios as well?
Besides invis res in front of everybody in the end zone.
Besides like a useless res, yeah, exactly.
I mean,
I really just
his
say, like,
his
make
reses
it
would have to
simple.
like super gold shield like 75% HP minimum off the res. Then you make
What I
his
think-
res maybe kind of good, but even again like at high levels, come on. You know what I'm
It
saying?
would be interesting. You know how they have the
Just
What
hit
if
the
they
overbuff.
extend the
invisibility?
invis? Yeah, if
Well,
they extend that,
what
that
if
might
the
be good.
invisibility like you stayed invisible while shooting?
That would be interesting.
So
That'd be annoying.
it would be really hard to like 3P a Mirage team or something.
Yeah.
Or like even if a Mirage got a reset off like mid fight, it'd be super annoying.
Mirage
Yeah,
goes
even if
invisible
they
while.
move that, even if they move that to 5 seconds, that is like very overpowering.
Because it's still counterable. Like you can shoot. Like if you see like the trackers of the gun or whatnot. Like you could see the animation, but it'd be just much harder to.
All right, boys.
Yeah,
we're
maybe no aim assist. I don't know.
we're approaching the
Alrighty.
last 20 minutes, so we've run out to do our speed round a little bit early because I want to try to get CAD Warrior out in time to get himself set up for what he has to do for the night with his team. With that being said, I am going to let you pick the questions, CAD. They're in my main chat if you want to go peek over there and look. Nasus Elite, he's a young player or not. I mean, he's new to the scene, man. He's genuinely curious. He's somebody who I asked, what would you ask a coach of his caliber, and immediately started just ripping off questions. So these are things that he sees within his gameplay, his team's gameplay, that he feels like they struggle with, that he would love an explanation for, or at least appreciate an insight of how you approach these situations or these examples of adversity, at least.
Well, I'll try to answer as many of them as possible. So the first one is, how should we approach early game rotations in a competitive setting? Um, it's a good question. Uh,
Fast.
typically fast. Yeah. I mean, it depends on the POI. It depends on the zone, but typically, like the way that I like to describe it to my team is that the faster you play, the more likely you are to scale faster than other teams around you. So if you leave your POI a minute and 15 seconds and the teams around you are leaving at a minute and 35 seconds, that's 20 seconds where you might grab that extra Evo cash, for example.
You have that
Loot's
uptime.
overrated. Loot's overrated. And typically, like at the lower level competitive scene, you'll see a lot of people taking way too long and not prioritizing time. And the faster that you move in the game, the better. Um, Second question: how do we decide whether to engage or avoid fights during the mid game? It's all situational. It depends on what's around you. Um, it a good principle would be, if you know you're being mirrored, um, then you typically want to avoid fights. If it's situational because there are times where you know you have a certain amount of time between when the team behind you is going to be mirroring you. So there's times where you have more time. Um, but in general, you want to avoid fights if you're being mirrored. If if you can third something, most of the time it's not a bad idea. Sometimes it is. Again, it's all situational.
Yeah. Also,
Uh,
if you have a good IGL, he'll be able to map other teams' rotations based on Evo caches and pills and stuff like that. So you'll generally get like a pretty decent understanding of what other teams are going to do if you did it before you left your POI.
yeah, that's so true. Like IGLs are pivotal in terms of like understanding how to play the game. Um, Best way to balance looting efficiency with positioning: prioritize positioning over looting. Just in general, whether you're on edge or whether you're on zone, it doesn't matter. If you're on edge and you're climatizer and you roll up to overlook and they're still looting their POI split, you are probably going to win that fight. Um, how do you adapt our playstyle to counter specific team compositions or strategies? Uh, it's a good question. Um, it depends on the comps really. It's like specifically in this meta, it's a reset meta, so it's super easy to reset on edge, and then it's super hard to survive end game. Um, like if you almost want to like avoid fighting completely because you know that any team that thirds you will immediately reset, so they're always looking to third party something. Um, but in general, like the general principles you want to think about are like maximizing the amount of space that you control. So if you're playing in a building, look to take positions outside the building so that you prevent people from getting into your building. If you're playing a certain spot and zone, as long as you guys are able to like cover each other, like spread out, take space, look for opportunities. Like the more area of the map that you control, the better. But you also don't want to like overextend to the point where you just become easy targets. So there's a balance there.
Super fair.
Yeah. Um, what are the most critical elements of in-game communication during scrims? Um, I have a communication sheet that my team uses. So it's how we calm everything. Um, Typically, it's just super important that basically you calm everything that you do all the time. Like there's no such thing until you get to the highest level, of play. Just literally calm everything. If you're popping a bat, say you're popping a bat. If you're moving to a different spot on the map, calm that you're doing that. If you're shooting your gun at somebody, calm who you're shooting, calm that you're shooting somebody, calm your damage, just calm everything. And then as you get to the higher level, you actually start worrying about cluttered comms, but most of the time that's not people's problem. Um, Especially like one in the tier 2 scene. Like the tier 2 scene, some of the biggest like skill gap is just comms. Like people just don't calm stuff.
Oh yeah.
How do you improve our callouts, minimize unnecessary chatter? That's probably not your issue most of the time, like I just said. But if it is, then it's about the brevity of which you communicate. Like you still want to communicate everything, but it's about how you communicate it. Like instead of saying 136 on Gibby, just say Gibby cracked because it's like fewer syllables. You know. Um, how should you handle situations where teammates have conflicting calls? Um,
Follow the IGL.
yeah, just in general, you follow the IGL, and then if the IGL is wrong, you talk about it afterward. Um, but the IGL is always right during the game. Um,
Yep.
Could be wrong post game though, but during the
Oh.
game, the IGL is always right. It doesn't mean that teammates should be able to like give input because it's super important that the entire team is able to use their voice. Um, but just in general, yeah, the IGL is always right. Um, what's the best way to debrief after a scrim to identify communication issues? This is so important that like the team environment's healthy. I don't know what you guys think about this, but um, for me, like I think the biggest hiccup for most teams is they'll talk about like missing shots or like they'll get mad at their teammates because their teammate died for free or something. I try not to focus on that because like it's if it's a mechanical error, it's a mechanical error. You don't need to call it out. Like nobody likes like like basically hearing that they fucked up. And most
You
of the
also
time,
don't tell Steph Curry to not shoot.
Yep.
yeah, exactly. Like I always want the team to play confident and to think that they're the best players in the game because if they don't, then it's very easy to tell when teams like aren't playing confident and you can kind of get rolled and skill gapped if you're not playing confident. So,
Mm.
Yeah.
um,
I think that you pretty much. I mean, you hit the nail on the head with that for sure. But I think just to double down, I mean, confidence is such. I mean, confidence and chemistry are unspoken of more often than not. We don't get to see it in the tier 2 scene because we have some people LFTing so often, so quickly, for the chemistry more or less. But confidence in your teammates that they're doing the work outside of the game, confidence they're going to be there inside the game, confidence across the team through the board and your coaches that they were doing the right things for you guys, they're putting in the work. Confidence is a huge that's one of the things I stress the most to my guys is play confident because I'm going to coach confident. I'm going to do my end, you guys do your end, and let's make sure that we have every reason to play confident. We have every reason to be confident that we're going to be the best today.
Yeah, I'll just piggyback up off that. For me, it's just I would rather them get mad at me than get mad at each other. So a lot of the times you'll see me end up being the bad guy.
Yeah. All right, man. Back to the speed round. I'm gonna let you cook again, Kai.
speed
You was
run.
going crazy, bro. You was going crazy.
How can you identify and strengthen individual roles within a team? This is a good question. I think it's also, and you guys are totally welcome to disagree with me, but my opinion on roles is, you always hear about like the anchor role, the frag, the refrag.
They rotate
Very
too often
common.
now.
I think roles are overrated.
Hmm.
I think I think in general, the role is every player's role is situational. For example, if you're pushing a Gibby team and you're fragging and you're just grappling through, you're the first one in. You just grapple the back of the bubble and you get two pumped by two players at once.
Mhm.
That's not the time to like be the refrag. Like whoever's the entry into the bubble, for example, is always playing their life. Your goal is to bait LOS, and then the two other players will clean up essentially. Um, Roles are so flexible. They're also very character dependent. For example, when you're holding spots, you always want whoever's overextending to be the Pathfinder or the Newcastle, a character who can get back really quickly.
You run a triangle offense?
Yes, sir. Triangle offense. LOS. You always want the triangle LOS. 100%.
So your roles shift very often because of the point of
Yeah.
the triangle.
I tell people very
Exactly.
often that like it's a matter of your formation and within your philosophy as far as your roles go. I think that more often than not, what you guys are describing is just like, I mean, I at least I've called it this. I mean, I've heard it called this in other games as well. Most people in Apex want to be a hard anchor or a hard refrag or a hard fragger. You're a flex. You flex depending on the situation, and that's typically like depending on on the utility of what your kit provides you within your character composition, right? So I mean, I think you kind of like circumference it, but the only thing I would disagree with you on is that my IGL, certain roles being the voice in fights, stuff like that, like I'm spacing on the word for it, but the generalized characteristics of an IGL, 10,000%. I want him within that role. I want it to be that guy, you know. I want him to be decisive, directive, all that good stuff. I want that role for that guy. My fragger, refrag, flex, whatever else you want to fucking hard anchor, hard masturbator, sitting in zone, not doing anything, whatever you guys want to say, I don't care. But like those extra roles are just flexes in my opinion, especially in current meta, because it doesn't matter if you're Newcastle in bubble or you're Gibby bubbling forward. It doesn't matter. Whoever's first, just like what you were saying, you've got to play around the utility that's presented to you. And if that means that Gibby's playing the frag and Nuke's playing the refrag, or vice versa, great, awesome. But I think where I kind of differ on is that I have people that I coach up specifically to do certain things. Like I like my Newcastle and my Pathfinder being the ones that scout around. So typically I have my IGL playing that legend to enable them to play their role kind of thing. But I definitely agree that roles are overrated and that you should play more of a flex identity.
I 100% agree about the IGL role. I think we're on the same page. Like IGL is an IGL, that's an actual role. But I'm talking about like what the way that players play, like
Yeah.
in the game typically. That is often very flexible. But yeah, I'm on board with you there.
Do you agree that IGL even has different roles when it's
Yeah, absolutely. During the
as-
fights,
Oh,
10,000%.
yeah.
During micro,
yeah.
yeah, dude. During micro, you just gotta handle business. Like you
Well,
can't
also depends
you
what
can't
character you're
you
on.
can't look at somebody and be like, "You're the fragger. Why are you back there, bitch? You got bubbled on." You can't like what do you
Yeah.
you're getting inted by a team. What the fuck you talking about? Your fragger's back there, brother. You're the fragger now. Shoot your fucking gun and shut up. Let's go.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think the community needs less cope.
Yeah, 10,000%, brother. 10,000%. We've talked about that too. Is if there was more great minds like what we have in this call today, actively influencing the scene, which is why we started this podcast, is to try to like broaden our perspective, our horizon as far as our outreach, and get other people involved in it to do the same for them. So I mean, hopefully it pays off, and we'll see coaches become more of a thing. I mean, I know there's a ton of like young coaches that are coming up right now that they're pretty prideful of themselves, and they're pretty confident that they're going to be next up in the scene. So shout out those guys as well. Let's get back to the speed round though. Let's go back. We got about 10 minutes, 15 minutes at most if you really want to cook, CAD. But I want to get you out of here in a healthy time, and I don't want to hold your time up at all.
No, we're good. We can keep cooking.
All right, brother.
The next question is, what are some exercises or drills to improve team synergy? This is also a good question. I think there's nothing that's better than just playing the game. So like ranked and scrims, nothing beats that. However, and I know this isn't always available to every team, but private lobby work is so important.
Yep.
And specifically, like talking about all the different spots that we want to play, how we're going to play them, talking about how we're going to fight certain buildings, for example. Like if you have a comp, you can come up with strategy, because a lot of the buildings on the map look the same.
Yep.
So you can come up with like fight strategies for specific buildings so that everyone's on the same page. All that's good. TDMing's great, obviously, for fighting. Nothing's better than TDMing. R5's great, but those are just some ideas. I don't know if you guys have any other.
I'm gonna keep it short and simple. I just have one drill that I think directly translates to this. That this person's actually been a part of this drill before. Siege or be sieged. You go to TDM and you go to fragment on the map, and you let a team set up with whatever composition they play on World's Edge. You let them go set up in a building. You give them about 20 seconds as if they had just taken that space, and there's a team rotating behind them. So if you want to be more disciplined, you give them less time, 10 seconds, 15, maybe 5. If you really want to get them to be more chaotic pushes and more scramble oriented practice. But you give them a little bit of time to set up, and then you let the other team come in, and you let them wrap space, siege the building. You let them defend the building however they want to. If that's holding height, if that's holding inside, however they want to do it, you do it. But you get that work on those buildings within fragment, and that translates to sky east zones. Specifically, I've seen my teams from that drill, teams that participated, do way far better about being selective on the buildings that they're able to fight in, and getting into those comfort spots, getting into those buildings that they know how to fight, they know how to play them, and they feel not only that, but they feel the most confidence, like we were just talking about, in playing that space. So,
See, I'm glad I did this podcast because that was a great idea, and I'm definitely going to borrow that.
absolutely, brother, absolutely. Please do.
Siege or B-Siege, you could literally do that with any...
Everybody, yeah. It's
Like,
just a
building
3v3. Yeah, literally. It's so beautiful.
It's
dude. I love
also
it.
extremely fun. It's not very like
It's not as rage
you're
inducing as
learning a lot,
CDMs.
you're getting better as a team, but you're also enjoying the time, which is really good. And there's like you're in a building and the other team's waiting, so there's a little bit of downtime for what it's a really healthy environment.
Oh, I bet, yeah. And you probably learn a lot about the meta by doing that too.
It's a lot
Yeah,
of me
that helps.
experimenting in there, dude. That's where I came up with Maggie Crypto Pathfinder Comp, which is what we ran before Newcastle was Jesus. So
Yeah, when
Okay.
Watson was in meta, like that was like prime for getting good practice because those green buildings are like a pain to push if it's Watsoned up.
I think that I'm definitely gonna do that, especially at the E district too, because a lot of those buildings are foreign for a lot of players.
Yep.
So
Yeah, we used that to time our crypto alts, and it got our timing really good.
it really helps with micro stuff, man. It really helps with micro.
I bet. Right on. Well, I just learned some stuff.
Hell yeah, brother.
How should we handle tilt or frustration during scrims?
Ooh.
Depends on
It's
player.
everyone does it in their own way. So
Yeah.
there's no single blueprint because we're all human beings. But in general, the less tilting and the less frustration, the better. I think we kind of discussed about this a little bit beforehand, but for me, like, I try to stay out of that, and just if my players get tilted or frustrated, just let them, and typically that tends to work. And but yeah, I don't know if you guys have any thoughts on that.
My approach to this is they have what I call the 1 to 2 minute period to boil, and after they boil, I turn it down and let them simmer, and I direct the conversation from there. I let them have their time to feel spoken and outspoken, and that they're being heard and that they got their message across. And after that, it's shut the fuck up. Daddy's here. I need you guys to listen to what I have to say because what I have to say is far more valuable than what your opinion is from your perspective. I just saw all 3 perspectives. I understand what all 3 of you were doing. I don't need to hear an explanation. I don't need to hear any coping. I totally understand. I'm totally sympathetic towards it. However, this is the reality we have to live in and we have to work in from this point forward, and kind of ground them back to what really matters.
It's actually really interesting.
I'm not as abrasive as what I just was then. I mean, Cloud's been around me for a year. He's seen it in a multitude of
It's
ways.
the perfect way to handle it. Like, I don't think there's anything you'd ever want to change to that, like, that way of doing things. Like, you need to have that first 2 minutes, so like that way there's no like internal damage to your team where like one person's just like secretly hating the other for like a whole ass year, and like and then they just start playing worse for like 6 months, and I'm like, what the fuck has happened? Oh, I've hated you for like a year. I'm like, okay.
So we actually, this is why I think this is really interesting, is because Evil's had great results that way, and I've had great results being more of a drill sergeant and saying, like, I come in right away normally if there's an argument, cut it off and tell him to take a walk if we're in a tournament, and then we just deal with it in a point view.
That is an underrated thing, by the way. Like, literally, as soon as something frustrating happens, like telling your players to like literally go take a walk and go do something, like to get their mind off of it.
Yeah.
That also is a way of getting their heads to relax. Like, they're gonna
Yeah.
be frustrated,
Yep.
but like they're not even looking at the thing that's frustrating them anymore. So when they come back, they're gonna be slightly less frustrated, and it's so underrated. Getting them to
Yeah,
just like get
I
up from
think
their chair and take a walk.
in scrims, I let the loose and I let them like argue. But if we're in tournaments and they start arguing with another player, I care more about that player trying to second guess his own instincts the next time he's trying to make a play than anything, because if that guy doesn't have confidence in what he's doing based off of what his teammates said, like that is a direct result of like my fuck up. And that's how I feel like at that portion where you kind of have to be a drill sergeant in certain circumstances, but in scrims you can kind of just be like let him get it out a little bit, because the VOD reviews aren't going to be realistic as opposed to the VOD reviews going into from a tournament.
Yeah.
You'd rather just like set them straight yourself rather than just like letting them learn. I don't mean this in like a wrong way, I guess. I don't know, but like you'd just rather handle the situation yourself rather than letting
Yeah,
them boil it
I'm
out over like half an hour.
yeah, I'm huge in control, so on all my Evo can attest.
Yeah.
I pretty much run everything from top to bottom, whether it's management to coaching to
He is the Bill O'Brien
player
of
management.
Apex.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys know football references in chat, but if you know who Bob is, he's the Bill O'Brien of
Yeah.
Apex.
They call him Teapot for a reason.
Yeah. All right. We're approaching the 8:15 mark for myself. If you would like to go, if you'd like to take a couple more questions, we're gonna play it by completely what you want to do, CAD. This is when I wanted to get you out of here, so we're at the mark for me. But we have a couple more questions on the board if you want to talk about them.
I can take these last 2 questions.
Okay, absolutely, brother.
Let's see, what are they?
Everybody else, we're selling
How
fucking
should
cook
we
here.
how should we adapt our strategies based on the current meta? This depends on the meta. I think certain times, like the meta is pretty locked. Like for example, prior to this patch, I think that Newcastle Gibby was essential. Like you had to play Newcastle Gibby, or else you were dead when the zone hit zone 6 or zone 5.
Yep.
However, with the recent update, I do think there's some holes in this meta now, and I think you're going to start to see a shift potentially away. It's also possible that the meta stays. I personally think they're the best comp plays against the meta always. And if you're one of the only teams that is like has that advantage of playing against the meta, then you typically do very well. A good example would be like Furia, for example, when they played against the meta that won ALGS, or for example, like the meta previous when it was like Newcastle Bangalore. IREX, for example, played Rampart, and you would just thread through Newcastle walls and get free kills every end game.
Yep.
I think that there's different times where playing against the meta is like really, really effective, but then there's times when playing with the meta is like what you have to do, which is like right now.
Yep.
So,
I've been
yeah, it just
experimenting.
depends. Have you?
Not gonna lie. Yeah.
I'm
Yeah,
curious, what have you been experimenting?
Everything. I think
do
Rampart.
you want to tell them what I cooked up for you for CCs?
Yes. So
Oh God.
we had plans to not care about BLGS, and we're using it all as a trial.
Mhm.
So even I played, just to put it in perspective. We played Wraith, Newcastle, and Rampart, and surprisingly, in that meta, even with Rampart's shield being, not damageable, it scored tremendously, and the Wraith gave a lot of value that I didn't realize, because you could walk up on every cat door, blow that shit down, third party that fight. You could port your in and out from pivot spots. It was actually a lot better than I initially thought. I would probably suggest in this meta, now that it is breakable, to run more of a Pathfinder or even a Valkyrie if you're going to run that comp. But I do know that Rampart is a hard counter to Newcastle right now, and a scoring machine from any zone teams.
Yeah, I've been thinking. I think right now, in my opinion, the best comp is just the CAD Gibby Newcastle.
Yeah, because
However, that doesn't mean I'm not going to test a few things, and my ideas like include Rampart, Gibby Newcastle specifically. I think like if you would essentially be unkillable if you have bubble Rampart walls, Newcastle Q, and Sheila, and you just farm everyone around you. And then I also think that you could potentially swap out the Newcastle for like a Valk, and instead of using Newcastle Gibby to like cycle Qs, for example, you'd be cycling Rampart Qs and Gibby Qs.
Yeah.
So I think there's a world where you have some options there. I also think Pathfinder is still really good. I think there's options. There's options on the table, but
I'm predicting an altar buff
You've been
to
predicting
happen.
Ultra Buff, man.
that,
Get out of
that's
here.
that's a bit
Her
out of
pick,
there. Yeah, I don't know
I
if I
see the
agree with
her
that.
and Sears pick
Eventually,
grade.
this character will become better.
Bro, look,
Yes,
he's
I
been
thought-
saying this. He's been saying this since last year, bro. I swear to
Well,
God, dude.
she got buffed last year.
I know,
Oh, she
I
did.
know.
No, she
Yeah,
got
but
buffed.
what's
Yeah,
Ultra
you're
gonna
forced. You
do
got buff.
in those ALGS lobbies? Like
You
round
can-
5, round
That's
6?
what I'm saying, bro. Like once you run out of space, like you might farm early game, but once
I mean,
you
it
run out of
depends the
space,
zone. Anything in the open, you're not going to get any value.
and like
The alt actually gives you value late game that people don't realize yet. You can hum that shit into other people's bubbles, take the shit, come out of a queue, and you're all three in different directions. That's the value of it. Do you get what I'm saying? Where you have
I would have to see
when
it.
you take the alt, you have a 2-second vulnerability after taking the alt of where you're kind of in phase. So if you can hum the thing like 20 meters, so you could easily hum it into someone's bubble. You could take that thing without having to take damage on the cross. It's not completely useless, but it's not great.
See, I just like I don't love the aspect of you coming out of a portal and
not good advice you want to
Yeah,
hear
but
from
then-
your coach.
No.
It's not.
I just
great.
feel like you get team shot coming out of portal.
What happens when you trade and you get third party though?
Yeah.
You just eat it. You just gotta eat it, man.
You just gotta eat it.
Stop.
You have to play with the Newcastle. So you'd come through and you throw it into their bubble. You Newcastle alt. They could shut it out of the bubble. It's my bubble now, and then you just reset from their positioning. You're basically just taking the bubble.
All right.
I love the passion.
So it is 8:20. I don't want to keep you any longer than this, dog. I can't. I don't want to do it, man. I think we're having a great conversation. I think that it is worth a part two. If you would feel welcome to come back on, I would love to make you welcome to come back on, man. Especially once we start getting into year 5 and start turning up. Maybe around champs, get a chance prediction from you. I think we've had a great conversation. Love the insight from you. Learning about you is awesome, brother. Do you have any closing remarks or statements or anything like that?
I don't appreciate you having me on. It was a blast. And yeah, I'd definitely be interested in come back on sometime in the future. So,
Absolutely, brother. If you don't mind, plug your socials because I know you got a Twitter, but I'm not sure where they can find you at besides Twitter, man.
Twitter's probably about it, so we'll just leave it at Twitter. Nobody's gonna be interested in my Twitch. I'm not a good player. So.
I have his other social. It's all good.
What? What do you? I'm not gonna ask. I don't want to know.
You don't want to know.
All right. Anyways, thanks everyone from chat for tuning in. Thanks to the community for giving us the great questions. I feel like honestly, you guys' questions this week trumped my questions that I had for him. So, shout out to you guys for that. That's fucking awesome. We miss you, really. Please come back to us, Pookie. I hope that they're feeding you at work right now. To all of our teams, to everyone in the off season, I hope you have a nice breath of fresh air, touch grass, go fucking do a hike or something, dude. Just get off your PCs. Just live life a little bit.
Take
You know
a
what I'm saying?
walk, bro.
Yeah, go take a walk, man. Go take your dog for a walk. More importantly, you know that dog needs some fucking love. All right. Anyways, man, love you guys. Thanks you guys for tuning in. We're out of here though. GG's everybody.